Okay, let's get right into it. We're talking about the big one, that 30-mark A-level politics essay. The one that can feel like the final boss of your exam paper. But I promise you, it is a challenge you can absolutely conquer.
So the big question is, how do you actually get full marks? How do you go from a pretty good essay to a great one? The kind of essay that makes an examiner sit up and think, wow, this person gets it.
Well, here's the secret. It isn't magic. It's more like a code. The examiners are looking for a very specific set of things, and in this explainer, we are going to crack that code together, step by step. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to talk about planning before you even start writing. Then, we'll get into the 3 essential scoring keys and the absolute game-changing Peel formula for your paragraphs. After that, we'll look at the common traps people fall into, and we'll finish up with your complete A-grade blueprint. Sound good? Let's dive in.
The secret to a top-tier essay, seriously, it begins right here, before you write a single word. A rock-solid plan is your map. Rushing in without one is honestly the fastest way to get completely lost.
Now, what's really amazing is how little time this actually takes. Just 3 to 6 minutes can completely set you up for success. Okay, so first, you break down the question. What's the command word, like evaluate, and what's the core focus? Next, and this is so important, pick your thesis. Decide on your main argument right at the start. From there, just sketch out your paragraphs. The real key here is balance. You're going to want at least 2 points for the claim and 2 against. And then, for each one, just jot down a quick, specific fact. Trust me, spending a few minutes on this will pay off big time.
All right, let's get into the heart of that marking code I was talking about. There are 3 things called assessment objectives, or AOs. Just think of them as the 3 keys you need to unlock those highest marks.
And this right here is probably the most important rule of the entire game. All 3 keys are worth the exact same amount. As you can see, AO1, AO2, and AO3 are each worth 10 marks. You just can't neglect one and hope the others will carry you. You've got to master all 3.
So, what's our first key? Well, AO1 is all about your knowledge and understanding. This is the foundation of your entire essay. It's where you prove to the examiner that you really know what you're talking about, using specific, accurate facts and concepts.
But here's the crucial point. AO1 isn't about just listing a bunch of facts you've memorized. Nope. It's about using them with purpose. So use those technical terms like parliamentary sovereignty. And make sure you include a specific fact, like a court case or an act of parliament, in every single paragraph to back up your point.
Let's move to our second key, AO2, analysis. So if AO1 is what you know, AO2 is all about what you do with that knowledge. This is where you build a debate inside your essay, exploring arguments both for and against the statement in the question.
You see, a top-level essay is basically a balanced debate on paper. You have to build strong, compelling arguments for the claim, but then you also have to build equally compelling arguments against it. The examiner is looking for this intellectual back and forth. It shows you really understand how complex the issue is.
So how do you actually build this analysis? Well, you create what are called chains of reasoning. This leads to this, which in turn weakens that. You use comparisons to show the nuance of the situation. And most importantly, you always explain why your point matters. Don't just state a fact, analyze what it actually means.
And that brings us to the third and final key, AO3, evaluation. This is often seen as the highest level skill, the real A-grade stuff. It's where you step back, you act as the judge, and you weigh the arguments you've just been analyzing. You decide which side is more persuasive, and you explain exactly why.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This is a direct quote from an examiner. AO3 is often the thing that separates the top students from everyone else. And notice that key phrase, integrate judgment throughout. This is not something you just tack on at the very end in your conclusion.
So how do you integrate it? You do it by making these mini judgments at the end of your paragraphs. You use clear criteria to make your judgments. Is one argument more democratically legitimate? Is one policy more effective? And you're constantly linking these evaluations back to that main thesis you decided on in your plan. Okay, so we've got our 3 keys, knowledge, analysis, and evaluation. But how on earth do you use them all at once, in every single paragraph? This is where the master key comes in, the Peel paragraph formula.
This simple structure is your absolute secret weapon. Each paragraph starts with a clear point that answers the question. Then you bring in the evidence. That's your AO1 right there. Next, you explain how that evidence proves your point. Boom, that's your AO2 analysis. And you finish with a link, which is that mini judgment weighing the argument's importance, and that's your integrated AO3 evaluation. See, it's a perfect little package.
And here's what that looks like in practice. This is a perfect example of a mini judgment from the end of a paragraph. It takes two competing ideas, the presidential PM versus cabinet government, weighs them up, and reaches a clear, reasoned conclusion. This is exactly that high-level integrated AO3 we're talking about. Now that we know what to do, let's just take a quick second to cover what not to do. Honestly, avoiding these common mistakes is often what separates the A-grade students from the rest of the pack. The big takeaway here is to always be purposeful. You want to use facts to support an argument, not just describe things for the sake of it. You have to ensure genuine balance, at least 2 points for each side of the debate, so you're not just being one-sided. And always, always aim for precision and avoid those vague, sweeping generalizations. All right, we've cracked the code, we have the keys, and we know the formula. So let's pull all of this together into a final, actionable blueprint that you can use every single time. I want you to think of this as your pre-flight checklist. Before you write any practice essay, ask yourself these questions. Did I spend a few minutes planning? Did I hit all 3 AOs? Is every single one of my paragraphs built on Peel? Is my evaluation woven throughout the whole essay? And do I have that crucial balance? If you can tick every single one of these boxes, you are absolutely on the path to an A grade.
Look, a perfect score. It isn't some impossible myth that only geniuses get. It's simply the result of having a clear strategy and a deep understanding of what the examiner is actually looking for. With this blueprint, that goal is absolutely 100% within your reach.
So, the only question left is this. You now have the code, you've got the keys, and you have the blueprint. Which essay question are you going to go out and conquer first?